Greetings. I'm Avoke Imanina McCoy, and I'm a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and I've been a member for 21 years. And I'm also a heart disease survivor. I've known I've had heart disease since the age of 9 years old, and it's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. Heart disease has always been in my family, from my grandmother, from my mom, from my brothers. In July of 2018, at the age of 43, I received a second chance of life, a new heart with a heart transplant. Such a blessing. But I want to talk to you about your lives, sisters. How about you taking care of yourself and your heart? As women, we're doing it all. We're taking care of our families, our husbands, our children, our careers, community work, and we know we're always doing sorority work. How are you taking care of yourselves? More than half of Black women have cardiovascular disease. In fact, about 1 in 3 women die from cardiovascular disease. That is a lot of women. 1 in 3? This has to change, sorors. I'm asking all women listening to stop. Stop and think about what you're doing to care for your own health. We need to be exercising, eating right, managing our blood pressure, sleeping, caring for our mental well-being and stress. Do you know your numbers? We have to take care of ourselves, sisters, so we can care for everyone else in our lives. I'm proud to be a 2021 Go Red for Women, Real Woman, for this exact reason, to share my story with other women and encourage them to care for themselves. And I'm incredibly proud that the important conversations like this are happening. As Black women, we need to come together and be talking about our health and the challenges our communities are facing. Together, we can make a difference. Invite a friend, a neighbor, another sorority sister to join you in making a commitment to live a healthier life. I'm proud to share my story, proud to represent each of you. Live fierce, go red, and thank you.
Good evening. I am Pamela Garman Johnson, National Vice President of Health Equity and Partnerships for the American Heart Association. Happy Heart Month and happy Black History Month. Thank you for joining us this evening. We know that this past year has presented so many challenges that have impacted our day-to-day lives. The pandemic, the racial and social unrest, the managing of our children learning from home, balancing work from home, the extra 5 to 10 pounds some of us have actually gained, being limited in where we can go and what we can do. And I might add, the amount of groceries and laundry that has somehow significantly increased. All of these new normals have had an impact on our health and well-being, particularly our mental wellness. Tonight, we are going to have an authentic sister-friend conversation on what all of this means to our heart and overall health. We will also shed light on how you can manage these changes in your life. As you reflect on what Avoke's story, we can all have hope knowing that you are not alone. Your heart matters, your health matters, and your life matters. The death of one woman to heart disease is one too many. This is why we brought together the presidents and leaders of the Divine Nine, the Links Incorporated, and a trusted cardiologist to share their journeys and offer real-time support, advice, and input on Black women and well-being. Before I introduce you to our moderator for the evening, our CEO, Nancy Brown, would like to share a few words.
Good evening. I'm Nancy Brown, Chief Executive Officer of the American Heart Association. I'm so honored to welcome the leaders from the Divine Nine sororities, President of the Links Incorporated, and Executive Vice President of Health and Wellness for Walmart, Dr. Cheryl Pigus, to discuss equitable health for Black women. We are so excited that media maven and member of Delta Sigma Theta, Amy Dubois Barnett, will facilitate a conversation with these distinguished thought leaders about how women can be champions for health equity. Heart disease remains the leading cause of death in the United States, and we have all witnessed how COVID-19 and other risk factors, including unmanaged blood pressure, obesity, and type 2 diabetes, can lead to worse health outcomes. The social factors and health inequities that contribute to negative health outcomes are the very same issues that disproportionately impact communities of color who are at greater risk for developing heart disease. As caregivers, parents, workers, and community leaders, Black women have often set aside their own physical and mental health concerns to care for those they love. Women have relied on coping skills, but long-term chronic stress can trigger diseases such as cardiovascular disease, which remains the #1 killer of women. Taking time to address personal health is more important than ever. The American Heart Association is a relentless champion for women's health, all women, because losing even one is too many. Thank you for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy, for your support and commitment to health equity. We appreciate your leadership in ensuring that equity is always at the forefront of our work at the American Heart Association. It is now my honor to introduce you to our moderator for this distinguished panel. Amy Dubois Barnett is a media maven. She was the former editor-in-chief of Ebony Magazine, Honey Magazine, and Teen People. Amy was also the deputy editor of Harper's Bazaar. She is an everyday history maker and a friend. Amy currently serves in a leadership role as BET's Senior Vice President and General Manager of Digital. Amy, I will pass the mic over to you.
Thank you, Pamela. I really appreciate that. And yes, we are friends. I miss you so much. It is wonderful to be a part of this conversation and to speak to such an important part of our lives, our health and our well-being. Let's start by introducing our amazing panelists. So joining me this evening, the International President of Zeta Phi Beta, Valerie Hollingsworth Baker, has received numerous awards from various organizations, including Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, for her community service. She has also been recognized for her service in the International Who's Who of Information and Technology and Outstanding Women of America publications. Says Valerie, but I'm going to say President Baker is a member of St. Augustine's Church in Brooklyn, New York. She serves as the Vice President of Hancock T&T Block Association and is a member of the NAACP. She served as volunteer coordinator with the March of Dimes for 18 years, as well as the volunteer coordinator for the United Way at her place of business for over 10 years. Valerie also volunteers her time with the Red Cross, the UNCF, and New York Cares. Thank you so much, President Baker. I'd also like to introduce Mary Bentley Lamarr, the North Atlantic Regional Director of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. She is the founder and executive director of the Sickle Cell Association of New Jersey. She serves on several boards and holds memberships in numerous professional organizations, including serving as vice president of the board of directors for the Newark Boys Chorus School and as national secretary on the Sickle Cell Disease Association of America's Executive Leadership Council. Sor Mary and her husband, psychologist Dr. Ansley Lamarr, founded Super Kids Camp in 1997. It is a residential camp program dedicated to the belief that all children are gifted and talented. They are the proud parents of Hunter, a talented musician and graduate of the Berklee College of Music in Boston. Now, Rashida Liberty, International Grand Basileus of Sigma Gamma Rho, is a senior finance leader with Amazon and recognized corporate leader with over 28 years of experience in delivering results for Fortune 100 companies. A proven and dedicated servant leader, she has led Sigma Gamma Rho in several capacities, including International First Vice President, Southeastern Regional Director, and as International Editor-in-Chief. Mrs. Liberty is lauded by her sorority for her stewardship of the organization's mission of enhancing the quality of life for women and their families in the US and globally. As international president, Mrs. Liberty continues to provide leadership to over 100,000 sorority members and affiliates, and serves as chairman of the board of directors. She's a member of numerous organizations, including Top Ladies of Distinction, the NAACP, Finance Executive Networking Group, and Jack and Jill of America. The national president and CEO and my soror of Delta Sigma Theta, Beverly Evans Smith, has restructured the organization's corporate board and headquarters operation, initiated the documentation of all business operations, added new revenue streams, and increased membership. She also served as the organization's elected national first vice president, national secretary, and was previously employed as Delta Sigma Theta's executive director, leading their headquarters business function. President Smith retired from the Technical College System of Georgia as the assistant commissioner and Georgia State Director for Adult Education and GED testing in 2018. In this role, she provided adult education training programs for an average of 69,000 Georgia citizens annually, with a staff of over 1,200 educators and support staff at 450 sites across the state. She was also responsible for the administration of all Georgia GED testing and supported local literacy action groups throughout Georgia. In addition, President Smith served as the 2015 to 2017 chair of the National Association of State Directors of Adult Education and has testified before the U.S. Senate HELP Committee representing the issues faced by adults with literacy challenges. I'm also excited to welcome Dr. Kimberly Jeffries Leonard. Dr. Jeffries Leonard is president of the Links Incorporated and the Links Foundation Incorporated. A public health professional, Dr. Jeffries Leonard, developed and incepted the HeartLinks signature program for the Links in 2008, ensuring the organization is structured, focused on heart disease. Her expertise includes minority health and behavioral health issues, specifically the development and implementation of programs, policies, relevant legislation, and evaluation. She served as deputy director of the Center for Substance Abuse Treatment at SAM-HSA, the chief operating officer of DC's Department of Health, and the director of the district's Addiction, Prevention, and Recovery Agency. She currently serves as the president and CEO of Envision Consulting. She's the chairperson of the District of Columbia's Commission on African American Affairs and served as a member of DC's COVID-19 Reopening Task Force. And rounding out our panel this evening is a trusted voice and respected medical expert, Dr. Cheryl Pigus. Dr. Pigus is executive vice president of health and wellness at Walmart and an AHA board member. She previously was president of Cambia Health Solutions, the past chair of the Association of Black Cardiologists, and co-founder of A New Beat, an organization focused on growing the number of women and minorities in cardiology. Thank you all for being here with me this evening. I really appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. So let's get right into it, ladies. Let's start talking about health equity. So I don't have to tell you that life expectancy can vary by up to 20 years within one zip code. And I also need to tell you who is not living longer within that zip code. These variations relate to access to healthy food, a safe environment, stable housing, and other social determinants of health, and can lead to illnesses like diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, or stroke. COVID-19 has been a catalyst for further revealing health inequities, particularly in the Black community. our communities are hit harder because of an over-index of these pre-existing conditions and social determinants. So I'd love to know is what role does each of your organizations take in addressing health equity and disparities among your members and in the community at large? Who would like to start us off? President Smith? President Smith, I believe you might be muted.
I am. I had to find my unmute button.
There you go. Now we can hear you.
I could do that. Your question really related to the things that we are doing to try and address these issues, if I'm correct on that. And I will share with you, we have an initiative in Delta, and I'll speak first of all to that one, and that is Delta Care. When I took office, one of the things that I was very concerned about was in fact the health of our women and how we were doing. We spend so much time taking care of other people that we really have not spent as much time as we need to on ourselves. And there's a saying that I heard once that said, if you don't take care of yourself, where will you live? And I do believe that, and am very concerned that that's something we have to do. So we started an initiative called Delta Care that really is focused on all aspects of taking care of yourself in terms of what you're doing. That comprises, and I will share, we developed a partnership, a one-of-a-kind partnership with Weight Watchers to get everyone engaged in that activity. The executive committee has committed to follow the plan and to keep track of us. I don't know if we're sorry we did that or not, but during COVID, we did that before COVID started, but we're trying very hard, but really focusing on what we need to do for health, physical health, mental health, and spiritual health as well in terms of our work. That partnership we have and what WW does, as is now referred, really is take care of the whole person. And the reason that initiative was so important to us is because the focus really is on the whole person. The second initiative, third initiative we have in that regard is something called the Red Shoe Challenge. That is one that specifically focuses on self-care when it comes to your physical health. We have a challenge every year where we do walking, even though we have to do it virtually now. We'll be doing the same thing at our national convention that's coming up. We have partnered with a major fitness brand to try and make sure that they focus on fitness wear for Black women's bodies, if you will, and they have agreed to do that with us. And so we have a fitness line that we have just launched, and the trial is coming out with matching shoes. You know, we have to have the shoes, we have to have the whole outfit, everything's got to go with everything to make sure we're all matching up, all to really focus on that exercise that's necessary for where we have to go and to take care of heart health. And speaking of heart health, we are working with the Health Equity Committee in the American Heart Association and very active in the Greater Southeast affiliate part of that organization. Our partnership with American Heart Association is very important to us. We really do talk about, when you talk about your heart, you talk about the whole person. You talk about how critical it is to make sure you are taking care of yourself. I think we all know and understand that, and we'll talk later, I know, about mental health. All of those things are affected by your heart health and what you're doing. And so we've spent a lot of time making sure we focus on nutrition with Weight Watchers. We focus with WW, let me not call it that we focus on mental health, and we'll talk about that, and we have that in terms of Delta Care, and that we focus on that self-care in terms of making sure we don't put others first, but understand if we don't take care of ourselves first, we really will not be any good to the community we serve. When it comes to disparity, the social determinants of health really are, you know, health issues are related to the environment issues, to insufficient education, to inadequate housing, to exposure to violence, to limits on your living income. All of those things affect your health. And so our social action is focused on making sure we take care of equity in those areas where it's important in terms of the world we live, the environment we live in, the political atmosphere we live in. If in fact we focus our social action issues on those elements of social determinants to our health that really are necessary, then in fact we can affect everything in our community. It's all tied together. There is nothing we don't do in regard to health that doesn't relate to all aspects of who we are in our communities.
I really appreciate that holistic approach, and I love that you outlined what our sorority does, because I think it just speaks to why so many of us joined our beloved sororities and organizations, to really have that kind of an impact on our community, and why we're so grateful to the American Heart Association for clearly being invested in this conversation about health inequities.
Absolutely.
I'd love to hear from other folks about what your organizations are doing
Sure.
to address health equity, please.
Well, I'm Mary Bentley Lamarr. Good to be here with all of these wonderful women and representing Alpha Kappa Alpha on behalf of my international president, Dr. Glenda Glover. She initiated her program targets, one being Target 2, Women's Health and Wellness. And through that program, we, of course, are glad to partner with the Heart Association on your Go Red for women. And you'll see my sign back here, Pink Goes Red. That's one of the initiatives where throughout the month, and actually throughout the year, but we focus on it during February, where we have healthy initiatives where you're walking. We walk with the Supreme, getting in 8,000 steps a day, doing things that will get you physically active, getting that cardiovascular system engaged. So the Pink Goes Red for heart, for Pink Goes Red for a Day is our Heart Month initiative. And of course, we do that throughout the year as well in terms of the exercise. Other activities in regards to women's health and wellness, something that we started, again, an initiative from my international president, was the Mammogram Bus. We have a breast cancer bus that has traveled all over the country, where we provide free mammograms for women who are underinsured or uninsured. And it really has helped us with that early detection. So the Mammogram Bus has been a wonderful asset to the communities that we go into. And just recently, we have partnered to start the COVID testing on a limited basis right now, but that has also been part of the mammogram. It's been in conjunction with when we've had the Mammogram Bus to go out. Other activities, nutrition and wellness, just like Dr. Smith had mentioned too, all of these things are part of our initiatives, because health, the nutrition is important, your healthy eating, as well as the care for caregivers, where oftentimes we don't take care of ourselves because we're so busy taking care of others. But sometimes it's important to think about what is the care for caregivers. So we emphasize these things throughout different programs that we initiate through the women's health and wellness in Alpha Kappa Alpha.
I love the fact that your organization is reaching directly out into the community, via the busing initiative. I know that so many people are not actually taking the COVID-19 vaccine because they simply don't have access to testing sites or to the internet, for example, to be able to sign up for testing. And so to have that direct touch with the community is so important. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I would love to speak on our initiatives for Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated. I will say our sororities, because we are women's organizations, we all focus on things that really help guide and deliver a whole person to the table, because we know the power of applying our oxygen mask first before we help others. And that's what we need to do. And so most of our programs are very, very similar. However, I do want to speak about a unique program that we have with USA Swimming. And with USA Swimming, we are teaching young people, when we talk about disparities in our communities and also taking care of our whole selves, it is very scary when you mention African-American women getting in the pool. And so we know that those children are more likely not to swim if they have parents who do not, and therefore may succumb to the waters, right? And so with our partnership, Swim 1922, we are uniquely partnered with USA Swimming, and many of our Olympians, as you can see, the scope and the breadth of who are becoming Olympians in that sport has changed. But through our partnership, we're going to underserved communities to teach kids not only to become well at a young age, but also teaching them how they can save their lives through sport. And so USA Swimming is something that is unique, that we're touching and filling the community to ensure that we are touching those underserved communities and helping those children. Of course, we do the things like our Walk 22 program, which was birthed in our Southwestern region, as well as a partnership that we have with Girl Track to really increase movement. And I have to say, leading by example, I was once really pushing that 350-pound mark. And so I've dropped quite a bit of weight since that time, just by leading by example and saying, you know what? I can't just talk the talk. I had to do it myself. And by leading the organization, I knew it was important for me to increase my water intake and report my journey to my members so that they can see that this is real life and that we're not just plastic people. We have full lives and we need to all take care of ourselves. And it starts with our leadership.
Well, you are officially my hero because you're the only person that I know that has lost weight in the pandemic.
Yeah. That walking in that water makes a difference. And healthy cooking. I
mean, if it has a button or a zipper, I'm pretty much not wearing it right now. So, more power to you. And I really appreciate your swimming initiative. That is so critical for our community and will save so many lives. So I really appreciate that unique aspect of what your organization is doing. Who else would like to jump in? I don't want to call on people, but
I would like to jump in. Yes, I'm going to speak on behalf of Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, and I want to talk about an initiative that we've had for over 10 years called Zetas Have Heart. And it's a holistic program that we put together because we thought that it was important that we speak to the issues of women and their health, mentally, physically. And by having this program, there were so many legs attached to it that we were able to really speak to our membership, making them to understand, educating them on the things that they need to do to take care of themselves. We, as I heard from my distinguished panelists, that we are all kind of doing the same things. But every organization has to put the shine on your membership for them to understand that it's so important that they are healthy. So we have a lot of educational programs that we have put together, a lot of nutritional programs. We also have partnered with Girl Trek. So they've celebrated their 1 million members that have come together. We are at every conference. We are up at 5 o'clock in the morning, walking, making sure that we get in our steps every day. We have made sure that we too have signed up with a fitness brand, a major fitness brand, and we came out in the end of December, and in January they delivered the gear, and I think our members are more excited that they have the gear to look good. So I said, see, now if you're going to look good in this gear, you're going to really have to exercise, okay? Because we don't want to see you just any old way. So we're making sure that they have the things that they need. We also give them ideas where they can go. Well, pre-COVID, where they were able to go for exercise, what gyms to join. We've had boot camp for them. We made sure that they had challenges. Dropping weight is so important, so that you can really maintain. And that's something that I think that sometimes we get away from, because the weight creeps up on us. And that's what we try to teach you. One day you're sitting, like you said, and we're sitting there. Next thing, you can't button the button anymore. You can't zip up you can't zip up the zipper. And then you sit there and say 5 pounds, 10 pounds. So calling the pot, the pot calling the kettle black. I have to do the same things to make sure, because my members look towards, what are you doing? So it's important that you also are going to lead the pack and do things, and making sure that we get that exercise. So we have a number of different initiatives, but they all concentrate on the holistic approach for women. And then not only do we do that within, then we make sure that we go out into our communities and we educate them as well. And we have our fitness buffs who will have different types of aerobics and things that they will teach to the communities. So we're very excited about making sure that we shine that light on the things that are needed and really taking care not only of ourselves, but the communities in which we live and work in. So we're good in terms of making sure that everything that we do, we focus on that health component because it's so important.
Well, President Baker, I'm not sure what it is about you, but you were really you're motivating me.
I had to motivate myself. So, sometimes you forget. So I have to be a living witness that I have to motivate myself. So I try to motivate. That's what I do for everybody. Just get in there and try to get you started up, ready to go.
I really appreciate the energy. And I also appreciate the fact that, of course, we have to focus, collectively within organizations, individually if possible, on, various, social determinants, that drive health inequities. At the same time, I'm also really appreciating that many of you are talking about the sort of low-hanging fruit, the things that we could possibly focus on right now, today, individually. It could be something as simple as trying to drop 5 pounds, trying to drop 10 pounds. Those are things that it's a very easy to digest message, and that you can really help people understand the importance of, and that you can focus on almost without any other messaging. So I really appreciate that kind of broad initiative is being attacked by many of you guys. That's wonderful. President, yes.
When we talk about the things that the links are doing, we also are, just like my other sister presidents and other sister organizations, we also are focused holistically from an internal perspective and from our community perspective. I'm so very proud of the partnerships that we have that really do help us focus on the issues of health equity and health disparities. And I'm also very proud of the programs that we're implementing. So like others, we have our Heart Links signature program, which we started in 2008. It's really very comprehensive in terms of how we address heart disease, health, and how that impacts our whole being, physical activity. We are getting ready to celebrate our 75th anniversary, and our membership is working towards 75 million steps. And so I'm excited to hear all the motivation from my sisters, because it is hard to get out, especially now, and just take that first step. So we're trying to provide information on how just little things can help. But when you talk about issues of health equity and health disparities, education is really critical. Even within our organization, sometimes there are things that we don't even understand about the symptoms of heart disease, the symptoms of stroke as it relates to women as opposed to men. And so we want to educate ourselves within so that we have a better understanding as we go out and educate our communities. But it's also important because to be able to advocate for policies that are going to ensure access for all communities and people of color who we know are disproportionately impacted by any disease. The word is, if the world has a cold, Black folks gonna have the flu. And so what we want to do is make sure that we are addressing those policies that provide coverage, that for financial coverage, access to care, that the conditions are covered so that we don't have to worry about, whether people can go to the doctor just to get basic checkups, because these are the things that help address some of these issues of disparities and equity. And we know that there's so many things, as my sisters have said, that tie into addressing issues of disparity and equity, economics, literacy, all of these things. So we have programs under 5 different program areas, which we call facets, that approach each of these. And as you take these things one by one and do integrated programming, have really robust partnerships, like our partnership with the American Heart Association. When you bring the right people to the table, when you educate within so that you can educate without, then you're making those steps to address issues of equity disparities, and you start to be able to close that gap. And so we really do try to work hard to use our voices as we put our steps, one foot in front of the other, as we try to get to those 75 million steps, which will help us, maybe be able to put on a dress that doesn't have the zipper button so that we can be a little bit more heart healthy.
Oh my God, I wish I hadn't said that now. Now you guys are, now I feel.
Oh no, we're all living this. We're all living this pandemic impact. We are living that, yes.
We are all living the impact. And I really appreciate your organization's emphasis on education. I really think that is a key component in making people aware of the drivers of what's impacting us, again, individually and as a community. So thank you so much for your service. I'd like to talk a little bit now about what's going on in the world and how that also impacts the ways in which we're able to treat our health and deal with health inequities in our communities. Last year, in response to racial and political unrest following the killing of George Floyd, the president of the American Heart Association responded with a presidential advisory declaring that structural racism is a major cause of poor health and premature death from heart disease or stroke. Dr. Pigus, can you please speak to the ways in which you see structural racism impacting healthcare in communities of color, both as individuals make decisions about seeking care and their experience at the doctor's office?
Thank you. And I have to say, I'll get into this meaty topic, but I do want to say the previous conversation just really shows what we each can do to not only empower ourselves, but empower our sisters. And it's just great to hear the energy and the work that is being done, and just really kudos to all of the organizations. I would just add to that, as you do this work, please know your blood pressure. Please know your glucose, what we sometimes say is sugar. And please know your cholesterol. That's how you know how you're making changes. You'll see it in, yes, Amy, I'm going to say it, in the buttons and the zippers, but you'll also see it in those 3 other numbers. And every little bit matters. And that is taking control and being able to manage your own health, no matter where you are and no matter what circumstances you're under. To your question, when we talk about structural racism, these are the areas that we may not have full control over, right? It's how there are structures that are put into place that limit opportunities for social, economic, and financial advancement. And all of those separately, additively impact our health. Racism produces adverse effects, whether it's blatant racism, whether it's perceived only by you, it has an impact on your health. There is some science that calls it weathering, where the stress of this can damage the walls of your blood vessel. It is real. It is a health concern that we all must address. On top of that, and because of it, you can have an increased amount of stress that leads to heart disease. So think of the risk factors we just talked about. We've got to watch our diet. We have to exercise. We all know we shouldn't smoke. And we've got to know our numbers. And then there are these structural racism components that we must be aware of. And so I always say, one, knowledge is power. And I think everyone here talked about that. But the first ways that you address this and you address health equity is you first have to name it. You've got to call this is structural racism, that it exists. But then what all of you incredibly powerful, motivated leaders just said, then we have to challenge it and we have to dismantle it. And that is our job. And I do think we are ready to do that. The American Heart Association is spending a lot of time and effort on how do you dismantle structural racism. There's one point that's already been made. One is education. One of the things that we know is that, as you said, zip codes really impact everything about your life. So what we've got to make sure is that for our children, we're making sure that schools in our areas have the right education, that we're asking for it and maybe even demanding that the teaching and the levels of care that we are giving in schools to our children impact their health positively. It is something that we can do. The second thing that I think that we can do, besides looking at education, is as we partner with businesses, ensure that there are businesses and job opportunities within our communities. Again, the zip code data is real. We can map this, we can ask for it. It is how you dismantle structural racism. The last year has caused all of us to really talk about this topic, right? We talk about structural racism. We talk about health equity. We talk about the impacts of COVID-19. We've probably seen the greatest outpouring and support that we've ever seen for these issues. I've been working as a researcher, as a public health leader on health equity my entire career. I probably have at least 3 conversations a day now, more than I've ever had in our career. It is time for us to take these opportunities and turn each of them into action. I will just mention a report that some of you may be aware of that came out last week called Race in the Workplace, the Black Experience. We at Walmart sponsored it. It was published and really goes through how do we ensure that we're improving the environment that we all work in, particularly for African Americans, and what are the steps that companies that are hiring people in communities what are the steps that they should be taking to ensure that we're removing barriers. So I really think this group, with the power and the voice that you have, and as women, we can do this. This is one item we can all address. It impacts our health. We should not ignore it anymore.
Dr. Pigus, I really appreciate your perspective. That was incredibly insightful, and so many things you said were interesting. One of the things that's standing out for me right now, I think, is the mental health impact of structural racism. You know, I think, watching, the George Floyd video last year, and then all of the other kind of day-to-day impacts, of structural racism and the way that it threads throughout our lives, really do take a toll. I appreciate that you brought up stress. I appreciate that you brought up trying to take care of our the ways in which stress also impacts our physical health. But I think that that's an incredibly important topic for us to address. And I'd love for anybody else to jump in.
I'll just say I really appreciate Dr. Pigus that you all took that initiative to address structural racism in the workforce and went beyond that and had some action steps for individuals to take, because I think that's the missing piece, that a lot of us, we get stuck in what the problem is rather than working towards the action to alleviate the problem. And I think that's, we all have put things in place to take action to alleviate the problem. So that's where we need to go. I was going to say too, with the, I look at how we need to put individuals in office who reflect our voice. We need to be proactive about getting individuals up and down the ballot elected who make those policy decisions from a legislative standpoint. That's something that we are doing in Alpha Kappa Alpha, is encouraging getting candidates up and down the ballot who reflect your voice. So I think that's important. So I just wanted to thank you, Dr. I want to pronounce your name correctly.
Pigus.
There we go. I was going to say Pigus. I've been called both, just so you know. I answer to both.
Okay, thank you.
I agree with Mrs. Lamarr, because I think that the issue of mental health is so very complicated, and being in the pandemic has really brought out a lot of things that we probably, that we used to gloss over. And so there may have been underlying issues. We don't even want to start bringing in the 400 years of trauma that we, of people of color, people of African descent, have had to deal with. And by sitting here in this pandemic and having to watch the fruits of systemic and structural racism play out on the television over and over and over, and then being isolated, our children being isolated. I mean, we're starting to see things that we probably never expected to see. What it does help us do is really start to be able to talk about it, which allows us to be able to reduce the stigma. And I know, like a lot of my other sister presidents and organizations, we've been really working to bring programs online to ensure that we are addressing not only mental health and mental wellness, because that's really where we're trying to get to, mental wellness. Just like you go to the doctor to check on your physical health, you need to stay in the doctor checking, ensuring that your mental health is intact. But not only in our communities, but internally, because we're all dealing with issues that put stress on us, that exacerbate whatever underlying or mental health issues that are there. And then as you talk about broader health, our cardiovascular health and the other things, these are things that just exacerbate those other issues. So things like we have a program that we're working with mental health first aid, so that we are training lay people to see lay issues. And if you see something, there are resources where you can direct community members to go and get support. Issues around how we address and how we treat mental health, and the fact that it's okay to talk about it. And so the more we're able to have these conversations, the more we're able to put programs in place, the more we're able to destigmatize issues of mental health, the better off that we'll be.
I'd like to jump in, if I could, where Dr. Leonard left off on that stigma issue is a critical one. We have such a stigma on mental health. We do not reach out to get help when we have, because it will appear as a weakness. And that is something that we have such a difficult time fighting. One of the greatest concerns I have, we've had with our Delta Care program, we focus also on that mental health thing. We've had a series of webinars on domestic violence, on depression. We've had a series all year. We did one with Omega Psi Phi, their grand bosses, their president is a psychologist, to kind of go over those issues and talk about them. I have been unbelievably astounded at the number of people who come on those webinars. It really allowed us to see how great the problem is. We're just not talking 100 or two, but hundreds of sorors have come on the webinar. The one we had with Omega Psi Phi, so many men came on because they want to discuss. We have in that Delta Care and that subcommittee piece, a group of psychologists and counselors who are on that committee who take care of that side, and doctors who take care of the physical side. But success to me in that area is the number of those members we've had and others we've had that are willing to speak up now about their issues and problems. If we don't bring it to light, and I think we have a responsibility, that stigma is going to continue to stick because we just don't want to talk about it. We think somebody's crazy. And that terminology that we used before for Uncle Joe's not right, those kinds of things. We have to get past that and understand, especially in the environment we live in today, we're going to see that. The things you see on the news, there's an expression, I use it all the time and don't think about it. What I see in the news and what goes on hurts my heart. And it's a colloquialism when you say it hurts your heart because it's heartbreaking, but it literally hurts your heart. In terms of the stress that it causes when you have to deal with it at work. It causes a self-esteem issue. We have so many issues with our young women, although I hope seeing more women of color doing more things helps with that. But I spoke to some teenagers this past weekend on self-esteem and the bullying concerns we have. All those things lead to such depression and such mental health issues that we start to undermine ourselves without realizing it unless we talk about it openly. The issue that Dr. Lamarr talked about in terms of legislation, that is so critically important. We have an initiative where we are trying to train sorors to run for office. We need people up and down that ballot. We need state legislatures to have to use the kind of care that's available on a national level, but they don't want it in their state. Making sure schools have psychologists and teachers who are skilled somewhat in handling those issues for children instead of putting them in a corner. what happens. And as you know, 8 times out of 10, the children they put in that corner are ours, and they do it between kindergarten and 3rd grade, particularly to our young men, and causes them to continually have health problems. It is a issue that is not a singular issue, but affects everything that we do. We have to address that to make sure that there is success. But when we down ourselves, when we aren't aware of issues that we may have, we may think it's a learning disability, and when it's not, something else. I think that part of heart health, if you will, that part of our health that really relies on the mental state we have and where we are is so critical to our success. We cannot avoid that issue and not talking about it openly and explain it's okay, because it's everybody's problem.
You know, if I can jump in, I know I've already spoken, but one of the reasons why these presidents have came together was really around the George Floyd murder, and the issue around that as it relates to mental illness. If you have the right people in the right place, so you know, it's not about defunding police or anything like that. It's putting the right resources. Very often we see issues that are tied to mental health issues with our young people, and these encounters is because they don't have the right people at the scene. Right. These are mental health issues that need mental health resources, not police resources. And those are some of the things, as we talk about legislation, voting, balloting, that we can also use to address how we look at, how we reframe, how we move the needle around these mental health issues. And what happens when you see someone who is suffering from a mental health issue in that kind of setting. And so that is really one of the reasons why we came together, and that was one of the platforms that we had. And so I think that we don't want to lose that, because it really is having those real resources that are going to address mental health from so many perspectives. So I just wanted to not to lose that, because that is really why this group has been together for what it seems to be a mighty long time, working on some real serious issues.
And if I
Just make one comment, just overall, that you know, we just weren't talking about this enough. There's something about 2020 that made us all raise our hands and say, it is real. The stress happens. We think about it, but we don't talk about it to each other. We don't bring it up with other family members. We kind of close it off from work. We also know that this type of stress increases maternal mortality. Right? So this stress is real for multiple medical conditions. And the importance, I think, of what's happened, just listening to, you know, Beverly Smith talk about the number of people joining these calls. Mm-hmm. And if there's one thing that Zoom has helped us do, it's allowed us to talk about these issues. So you think of, there are no real silver linings during a pandemic and the discussion of racism publicly. But one of them that I think we have to keep and carry on, it's how do we continue these types of communications that we're all the same. And I'm as stressed as anyone else. It's been a really rough year and a half. And yes, I exercise, I cheat sometimes on meals, but I talk about it. And I think that example for all of us really matters. It matters to other physicians. And I'm hearing us all say it matters to the rest of our community. Mental health, we don't understand it enough. It's why we kind of push it to the side. We've done a lot of research in cardiac disease. It's how I can sit here and tell you the risk factors, and we all know what to do, and you know how to partner with the American Heart Association. This is the other area for us. That we've got to make sure that we develop the science so that you know what are all the right things to do. But the first couple that we know is we've got to acknowledge it exists. We have to talk about it, because talk therapy actually works. And for all of you talking about exercising actually helps as well, your mental health.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, to kind of talk about the systemic issue. Most of our organizations do have undergraduate members, meaning these are members on college campuses. And this has been a much different year than what most college students have expected, especially those who are going to college for the first time. And so we have used this time to really educate our advisors and do some very specific training for that identification of the issues. We're not trying to create many counselors out there, but we're trying to make sure that people can identify the issues that are really prevalent. And coming back to the table, some of our undergraduate leaders said, we need help for our members. And hearing what President Smith stated was, we have an event every 22nd of the month to just bring our members together. We call it the SG Road Takeover or Sisterhood Night. And it's usually an activity to really create that sense of engagement and community and togetherness. And they have gradually just grown, quadrupled in the last months. Initially, a couple people joined, then, well, I won't say a couple people, but a couple thousand here and there, and then it just has quadrupled because people do need that sense of community. And I'm sure many of our organizations are seeing much more reactivation because people want that sense of community. And we've also seen an uptick in membership interest because people want to be with like-minded women to kind of talk through these things. So I have just been excited. Now, one of the things that I do want to say about our organization is that the month of May is mental health awareness. That's where it's a big focus. I know it goes all year round. We have all these things that are the underbelly is all year round. But May is our big month. And what we have done is we have partnered with an organization to give an hour to our members if they want it, meaning they will be able to take advantage of a complimentary service to just talk to someone for 1 hour. And that's a way to introduce the art of therapy, or just say it's something that we're offering. If you want it, take it or leave it, but it's a gift to the membership to just have those conversations. I think it's important to remove that stigma, back to what many have said, but really opening up the dynamics of talking and communication, and really people saying, I may need to use those benefits that I do have at my employer to make this a reality for me to take care of my whole person.
Thank you. Please.
I would like to jump in. I know that it's been said a few times here, but I know it's so important of some of the things I've heard, and I want to thank Dr. Pigus for really bringing to light some of the things that were in my mind. And for Zeta, two of the initiatives in this administration that I started was one called Zeta Sings the Blues, and that is their mental health. And of course, domestic violence. We felt that we had to really zoom in on those two areas because there was so much happening. And just like Beverly said, it was an eye opener to me, having these different webinars, having these different seminars, having these talks and trying to educate our membership, but then coming back and hearing the personal stories. You don't know what people are going through. That's the scary part. We have this outward face every day, but you don't know what someone's going through and how that affects you on the inside. And that's why so many of us are crippled through what is going on, but we're not able to reach out and touch. So we as Zetas, we are trying to bring them on board, to talk about this, to engage them, to let them to understand that there are people that are out there. We can get them help. We can talk to them. We can make sure that they are not feeling alone. And I think that's one of the issues, feeling alone and not knowing where to turn. So that helps when you have able-bodied people in your organization that have certain expertise, that have certain outreach, that they will be able to help you do those things. I also heard something about when we talked about the zip code. I try to engage my members and let them know that we need to start with the grassroots right there in your community boards. See, we have to protect our own neighborhoods. Because if you don't protect your neighborhood, no one else is going to do that for you. We have to show up and show out at these meetings because the people who we elected, they need to listen to what we have to say because we're living in the neighborhood. So we need to be able to make sure that the things that are needed in our neighborhoods, that the politicians are going to hear it and they're going to do something about it, because proper education, making sure that, we have teachers that are actually going to be teaching our kids, and that they care about our kids and not just pushing them to the side, as I've heard said here. We need to be able to be the voice of reasoning. And that's what we have to educate our members and educate those in the community. And we do that with Zeta. We go out, we are making sure that they understand grassroots from the bottom up. Because when you start getting more involved, we're seeing now that more of our members now want to go and run for different positions on different levels, because they're learning that the grassroots is where it's at, where you start with baby steps. So these are the kind of things that I find that is important, because it helps out the areas in which you are living in, the people that need your help. And then last of all, it's the structural racism I find is even with going to your doctor. We get this, you go to the physician, they'll stamp you with whatever, just like everybody else has. But does that mean that the treatment that you're getting is treatment that is good for you personally, not good for the 35-year-old white male or white female, but what is it doing for you? And that's why we've all partnered with all of us, because we want to be able to have everyone in our areas in which we live understand how important it is. That, sometimes clinical trials is not always bad. There's things that we have to learn so we can make sure that what is being done for us as people of color is going to work for us. And it's so important that we pass that knowledge and education along, because what has been done for others doesn't necessarily mean that it's good for us. My final story here is that my mother was diagnosed with cancer many years ago. And I wish she had a better physician at the time, because I didn't agree with what the physician was saying as the treatment, because my mother had a heart condition. The treatment she was able to get over, and thank God she made it through a year after she had her treatment, had her surgery. But what killed her was a heart attack, because it was too much on her heart. And see, we don't understand. We don't know what these things do to us. And when you're not educated and you don't know, your loved ones can pass away. And you have no power to do anything, because this is what is given to you. We've got to make things better. That's what I feel I'm here for, because I wouldn't want that to happen to another person, because we have to really make sure that our people get proper treatment, the treatment that will help them, and we need to educate them on that. We need to keep pushing the needle. So that's how we try to do that there with Zeta, and making sure that we have that educational component.
Thank you so much, President Baker. I feel like that's what we're all here for. I think it's evident at this point that we all care so deeply about our community, and that we are all absolutely purpose-driven and invested in improving the conditions across our community. So I just thank you all so much, again, for your service. It's just incredibly impressive to hear how you're all using your platform and your influence, again, to empower our communities, specifically to deal with mental health, which is what we were just talking about. So thank you guys so very much. We don't have a lot of time remaining, but I do want to touch on the COVID-19 vaccine. There are still a lot of people in communities of color who are hesitant to get the vaccination. Dr. Pigus, can you offer any recommendations or advice from a medical perspective?
Yeah, and I'll start off just by saying the vaccine hesitancy that we saw in Black, Latino communities even 3 weeks ago has improved significantly. And it's really important for us to track those numbers and hear and understand, and maybe hear some of the whys. So I'll start off by saying the 2 vaccines that we have today, I think many of you know, they're 95, 96% effective. They work. What's important, and I think, I can't stress enough what we just heard about, hey, were you part of the clinical trial? How will it impact you? Well, these two clinical trials that were done, one with 30,000 people and one with 40,000 people, included significant numbers of African Americans and of women and of men. And so we know that these vaccines have been studied for safety and efficacy. And as I just shared, they work. And so that's the first thing that you've got to make sure people know, that the science was done, you were included in part of the process, and now we have vaccines that have been approved. The next thing we have to do is make sure that there's trust in the community by those who would be administering the vaccine or those who would recommend the vaccine. And this is where the voice of African American clinicians in particular have really mattered. And we do believe that has caused some of the differences in the numbers I've just talked about. There's an organization called the COVID-19 Black Collaborative, made up of physicians across the country, not only doing videos, Twitter, Black radio, TV, really going out and showing not only are we getting the vaccines, but we will do this in sites in your communities. A couple of weeks ago on the south side of Chicago, I got a call from a good friend, a leader at Rush Medical, who said, hey, on the south side of Chicago, we're not getting enough vaccines, or even if we got them, will people trust it? 7 o'clock on a Tuesday night, there were aldermen, someone from the deputy mayor's office, Black radio station leaders, until 9:30 that night. By Friday, they were communicating to their communities, and we, Walmart, partnered with them and gave out 5,000 vaccines on the south side of Chicago. And what does that mean? It means that success here requires partnership, it requires trusted voices, and it requires being present in the community, to the point made, in the zip code where you can get these vaccines. That success is what we're all hoping for. And I think everyone here can help spread that message, the way we're spreading the mental health message, the way we're spreading the decreasing cardiovascular disease message. That is coming. It is believed that by the end of March, we will have 200,000 additional vaccines. We will be able to vaccinate people in our communities so they do not need to travel elsewhere to get it. We have to make sure that people know what it means for them, for their health, and that we're helping them get to the vaccines. Definitely my commitment, and just listening to all of these wonderful leaders, I know it's yours as well.
I will say, Dr. Pigus, I've had my shots. I had my second shot, first shot with a full film crew present. So we'll be putting that up on our website soon. I had both shots with no reaction. So it worked out well. Little soreness that you have with any vaccine. But, you know, our intent is to spread that word as wide as we possibly can, and put that video out there with a message from me saying, please take care of yourself. Look to see this, look at the research, make a decision, but try to make a wise decision. So at least probably in this group, I've reached the age where they reached out to me early on. So I'm good.
Well, I'm with you there too. I had my vaccine and took pictures, and that's something we're doing in the sorority, is posting when you have had your vaccine to encourage others to do so. We have the Wear a Mask campaign, which I'm sure my sisters here have as well. But it's so important to get that message out. I work in sickle cell disease, and our population is compromised in many ways. So, and many of you can understand that this is the Heart Association. So we want individuals with those complications to get that vaccine. It is their choice, but encouraging that, and by us leading as example, like it was said earlier, we're here to make the world a better place. We're here to make a difference. And just being that example, I think will help and encourage others to do the same.
I had my vaccine too. I had both of them. And the Links Incorporated actually did put out a statement encouraging members in the community to step back, that we stand behind the vaccine. And we were very pleased to have Dr. Kizvikia Corbett on Town Hall to talk about it. And these things were important because we want to try to allay some of the fears that you all talked about in our community, who kind of historically have been suspicious. But, you know, I'm really just very proud of this group, because we really are so very aligned and in tune with those issues that are impacting our community. I think we're going to be on a town hall with blackdoctors.org next week to talk about what each of our organizations are doing to promote the vaccine. They wouldn't let me take pictures where I was. I took my camera out and they were like, no pictures up in here. I was like, okay. But it is important for us to lead by example. And there are people who don't really even care about the science. They just want to know, did you take it? Do you feel good about taking it? And when you say, yeah, I'm good with that, then that leads them to take it. Then they tell two people, and then you've got this community engagement. And I think that Dr. Pigus, when you talk about seeing this needle move, I think that, maybe I'm bragging, but I think that this collective of women, because I think our collective reach, when you talk about the Divine Nine and other members, other organizations, I mean, we have over 5 million that we're reaching. And when you talk about the reach of our organizations and then their reach into the communities, I mean, that's really very impactful. And these are life or death issues. I mean, we also are being impacted by COVID. And when we talk about heart disease, those who have heart disease, those that are at risk for heart disease, those that have the indicators, overweight, other kinds of health issues that are tied to heart disease, the severity of COVID is worse, the outcomes are worse. And so, that's why it's really very important to ensure that however we can get that message out to make sure that people are vaccinated and have the access, that we're doing that.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to say I'm taking my shot on Monday at 9 a.m. I am not the best in taking needles, but I got to do it I got to take that hit for the team. So I am on it, and we will be spreading the same message through Zeta, and hopefully I'll be able to take a camera and take some pictures, but we are going to be spreading that word that it's important that they educate themselves about the vaccine so that they will be more knowledgeable on which way they're going to go with that.
You know what was great, and I do have to share this because I'm so proud of Wellstar, the hospital system here. The hospital system actually provided the film crew.
Oh, that's great.
They're going to use the film, not only can you use it for Delta, but they're going to use the film in the community. They got community leaders locally to all participate in this My Why campaign and asked me to do it. So they set the whole thing up and prepared and did the editing. So and they really made sure also, Dr. Pigus, to your point, that they have mobile units in parts where there's low-income families and people of color in the Atlanta area. So they made sure the community was covered. And if there wasn't a site there, they took a mobile unit to make sure there was a site there to make sure people got their vaccine. So for Georgia, I'm just proud that they're all in, at least on this one effort. They really are working to try and make sure they cover their bases.
Well, I'm proud of all of you ladies. You guys are really on top of your vaccines. Thank you so much, because it's not just for you. Obviously, it's for, it's for our community, it's for our country, it's for, at this point, the world. So thank you so much for being on top of it. I will also say that at BET, we have really leaned in educating our community about the vaccine and encouraging all of our viewers to be proactive and to, again, as I think President Leonard, you mentioned, to try to allay some concerns, some justifiable concerns around the ways in which we have historically been treated within the medical community. But certainly the vaccine having been developed largely by a Black doctor, we feel very comfortable in making sure that as many of our viewers, are comfortable taking it as possible. I just really want to thank all of you for this incredible conversation. I want to thank each of you for sharing your thoughts with us this evening. We will continue to have open dialogues about the health and well-being of women and encourage each of you to take action in changing systems to break down the root causes that prevent health equity for women, people of color, and those who are living in under-resourced communities. Thank you guys so much. I'd like to pass it back to Pamela Garman Johnson, who's got a few final words.
Ladies, thank you. Just absolutely outstanding. All I can say is leadership, trusted voices, partnership equals transformative change. that is what each of you represent. And all I can say is the American Heart Association is so proud to work in concert with each of you to make an impact, not only on our individual lives, but on the lives of our community. I just want to close with just a few housekeeping items, and that is the following. First of all, the American Heart Association, through our Go Red initiative, we do have Research Goes Red. And when we think about how we can make an impact, and we say, well, we're not sure because this hasn't been tested on Black people, or it hasn't been tested on this person or whatever. Well, it's through research. So we need to be involved in these different research initiatives because that is what is going to help us to build trust. And we really are working to build trust. And just hearing that each of you have been on the journey of getting the vaccine is really amazing. So thank you again for your leadership. And then lastly, I just say, let's just encourage each other, because the journey of being healthy is sometimes not always easy because we are tempted to do other things. But you have exemplified tonight what it means, and when we work in concert and with each other, that we can make an impact. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and be blessed.